20 devotee. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, chant. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Chad, take the book off there. That shouldn't be on the seat like that. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga.
So when we talk, it goes through. Okay.
What happened to the heat? Anyway, we're all dressed warmly. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 12th day of February 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the 5th chapter, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, text number 7 on page 235. Got it? Okay. Yoga, Yukto, Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, Jitendriya, Sarva, Bhutatma, Bhutatma, Kurvan, Api, Nalipyate, Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Api Nalipyate, Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Api Nalipyate, Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Api Nalipyate. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Api Nalipyate. Tapas. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Api Nalipyate. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Api Nalipyate. Ladies. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Api Nalipyate. Anyone else online? Okay. Yoga Yukta, engaged in devotional service. Vishuddha Atma, a purified soul. Vijita Atma, self-controlled. Jita Indriyaha, having conquered these senses. Sarva Bhuta, to all living entities. Atma Bhuta Atma, compassionate. Kurvan Api, although engaged in work. Na, never. Lipyate, is entangled. Translation. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Purport. Yes. Purport. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches. or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, he is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And because his mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of his being deviated from Krishna. Nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. And he does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as has already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually, as the soul cannot be slain. So, spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed. In other words, their outer dress, the body, by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, here it says, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. Everyone is dear to him, and he's dear to everyone. That's what it says. But we have so much history. Like I'm thinking of the history of the Bombay temple, which is told in this wonderful book by Giriraj Swami. I will build you a temple. And it was certainly the case that the devotees weren't dear to everyone in that area. They had all kinds of campaigns to get rid of them. They actually attacked the temple. They had a preliminary temple built on the grounds. I saw that temple. And it was just, I don't know if it even had complete walls, it was just like covering the deities. But the gentleman who was selling the land, he didn't really want to sell the land. It was kind of a whole scam. He would put the land up for sale, he would get a down payment, and then he wouldn't deliver the land. And there was all kind of legal things, but because he paid off the government and everything, he had done that several times, I think. So, but Prabhupada, as soon as the land was the devotees were able to live on the land, even though they didn't have the deed, but they put the down payment on. Prabhupada immediately brought the deities on there and built that temple. And having the deities there, Prabhupada was not ready to leave. He was very determined to have that temple there. And so the key was that he would send the devotees out during the day, and they would meet with leading members of the community there in Bombay. Sometimes they would be very leading members, because Prabhupada was so aristocratic and he was so nice, and he would go and meet them and also. So he had all these life members, and when that attack came, I forget the names now, but one of our leading men, he went there, and then he went and they called in the police, or the army or something. In other words, they pushed back on it. And it was so, but the idea that everyone was dear to them and they're dear to everyone. Everyone may have been dear to them because they saw Krishna in everyone, but they didn't. There was a whole faction that was. And Prabhupada talks about that sometimes. He gives the example of Jesus Christ, who was crucified. He wasn't dear to the kings there in the Middle East who were doing that. So, but in general, the example of the 6 Goswamis is very good. Especially Sanatana Goswami, you may not have heard this. He was very qualified materially also. He had been a prime minister in the government. you know. And then he gave it all up and he just became a mendicant in Vrindavan. And he was writing these wonderful books like Bhagavad Gita and others. And he oversaw the building of the Madan Mohan temple, and you know. But he was so skilled in in interrelationships with humans that people liked him so much. He was so friendly and peaceful and joyful and Krishna conscious, and they were also, you know, all devotees of a sort, even the people who lived there, ordinary people. So when there were disputes between the man and the wife, they would go to him and he would solve it and they would accept it, you know, and other things that came up, it was seemingly mundane. But he was acting as a all-around, you know, advisor and senior for everyone, and so he really was dear to everyone, and everyone was dear to him. But the point here is that this yoga yukto. So yoga yukto means engaged in yoga, of course, bhakti yoga. Always thinking of Krishna, engaged in devotional service. Vishuddhatma, not just Shuddhatma, but Vishuddhatma. The prefix vi is always an intensifier. So you have Vishuddhatma means very pure, a pure soul here, not just, you know, very pure soul. Vijita Atma. Vijita means self-controlled. This is a main characteristic of great devotees, is that they keep their equipoise even in dangerous conditions, or, you know, seemingly conditions that ordinary people would be extremely disturbed in. Because being fixed, they're fixing the mind on Krishna, then they have that spiritual connection, and they're seeing everything else as external, as, you know, material, even their own body, you know. So they're able to tolerate. This toleration is the first quality, really, of the sadhu, titikshava, karunika. The second one is mercifulness. And you can see why. If you're really merciful and compassionate, then you go out of your comfort zone and you try to help people and you go to dangerous places. And you have to tolerate. What are we reading in the morning? Prahlad Maharaj. Prabhupada always calls him Maharaj. He's a 5-year-old boy, but he's always, because eventually he'll be Maharaj. But he's preaching beginning his preaching to his classmates, which is the most dangerous thing he could do. His father was, you know, trying to raise these kids up to be good little demons and, you know, good soldiers in the administrative whatever, you know. And he's now infecting them with Krishna consciousness. So that was the last straw. You know, his father, he had assigned his henchmen to go and kill Prahlad. They couldn't do it. So he says, oh, he's just a young boy, you know, they'll be able to correct him somehow in the school, you know. He didn't see a danger. But now he sees the danger. Sedition. He's undermining the whole basis of the demonic society. So we'll see in a few, the next chapter, his father will try to kill him. And who appears? The Shringadev, yes, and annihilates him. So, Vijitadma Jitendriya. Here, Jita is used in both sides. Jita Endriya specifically concentrates on the senses. Indriya means the senses, and the word Jita means control or conquering. Vijitatma, self-controlled, and here's that prefix V again, you see? Vijitatma means completely self-controlled. As we read, what is that? Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam. Those are familiar with the Nectar of Instruction book. The very first verse is describing the Acharya, actually, describing someone who you can take shelter of, the Guru. So what are the symptoms? Vacho Vegam, Manasakrota Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Uraro Pasta Vegam, Etan Vegam Yo Vishaheta Dhira. Dhira means he's got control of these urges that come just from being in the human body. The urge to speak. So much nonsense, you know, pouring forth from every corner. The phones and the computers and the TVs and everywhere, you know. So much prajalpa. You know, it's not about Krishna. So that's, and the urge to speak on so many different things. So that's one urge. Manasa, the mind is giving you so many impulses. Anger, you can become angry. It can be overwhelming, the urge to strike out, Krodha Vegam. So Vacho Vegam, Manasa, Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, the urge of the tongue to eat, you know, and taste things that too much, you know. Udara Upasta Vegam, then the belly and the genitals, you know, these are other Vegas that come. They're in a straight line. You eat too much, you know, agitate. So, Etan vegan yobachahita dira, if you find someone who has control of all of these, and what's significant, you can see it. In other words, you hang out with someone, you can see, are they controlled in their speech? Are they get easily angered? Are they, just plopping down by the TV and just, eating tons of Doritos or whatever, you do. So you can see if someone is control of these. It's something, and so such a person can make disciples all over the world. It's an external thing to understand, So here he's saying, yes, this is such a person. Vijitatma Jitendra, it's the same idea, completely controlled. And then what's about relationships with others? Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. He is, let's see, it says, controls the senses, dear to everyone, everyone is dear to him. That's the Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. Kurvan up in the Lipyade, he doesn't become entangled. He's not entangled in the modes of nature and in the material world, planning and, what's the usual consciousness. He's entangled with Krishna's lotus feet. The mind, as Prabhupada explains in the purport, he's always thinking of Krishna. That always thinking of Krishna is the holy grail, of Krishna consciousness. Everything reminds you of Krishna. Like this morning, I was just reviewing and chanting some of the beautiful prayers of Brahma from the Brahma Samhita. And one of the verses is like Eko Pisauda Chahitum Jagadanda Koting Yakchaktirasya Jagadanda Chayayadantak Andantarasta Padamanu Chayantarastam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. They're wonderful meditation. And so this verse says, Eko Pisau, that one person, Vichayitum Jagadanda Kotin, from him is emanating all of these millions of universes in seed form. That one person is like Mahavishnu, right? He's an expansion of Krishna. Vichayatum Jagadanda Kotin. Anda. Why is it anda? Does anyone know why it says that Jaga is anda? Yeah, it's like an egg. Ananda means egg. Sometimes Brahma anda, Brahmanda, Brahmadekon. Why is it an egg? Because it's got space in the middle, which is half filled with the water that was produced from the perspiration of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And he's lying on that water on the bed of Sheshanaga, right? And from his navel comes this lotus, and on top of that lotus, Brahma appears, right? Brahma is known to be self-born, because he's not born from the ordinary way. And then gradually from Brahma's mind comes the first. He needs to populate the universe. You got all of these souls who need bodies. Because that's part of what happens when the creation is, that the souls come out of the body of Mahavishnu. They've been lying in there for billions of years without consciousness. They're not dreaming or anything, but all of their karma is there and the consciousness is dormant. But then it starts to, they become conscious, and then they want to. The idea is that karma now needs to take place, and they have to appear. So he's got a big headache, how to propagate the universe. So from his mind, what has he got to work with? Basically his own mind and body. So from his mind appear some demons appear and others, and then the 4 Kumaras come. So these little children, they'll grow up and they'll be the first Prajapatis. Notice the word Prajapati means progenitor. Notice the similar word, progenitor and Prajapati. But they don't want to do it, right? They say no. I don't know about you, but did you ever see that? Was it the Tinkerbell? What is it? I won't grow up. I won't grow up. Isn't it? Peter Pan. Perverted reflection. So they decided not to grow up, literally. By their mystic power, they kept themselves 5 or 6 years old. Brahma became angry. He didn't take it out on them, but from the middle of his forehead came Shiva, Rudra. Anyway, this is described, how gradually, and after a while, Daksha came. He's a real Prajapati. He was into it, and then gradually the universe is populated. The Manus come, gradually it works. But the point is that the devotees, of course, Brahma is a devotee, and he's doing that service. But like devotees on this plane and human beings, the 6 Goswamis take them as ideal. they disentangled themselves from, especially Rupa, Sanatana, and Raghunath Das Goswami, whose appearance day is tomorrow, by the way, along with a lot of other holidays. He was the ideal of renunciation. Raghunath Das was the epitome. His parents, his father and his uncle, they were huge zamindars, landowners, very, very wealthy. Would be known, multimillionaires or billionaires today. But after he met Lord Chaitanya, he just wanted to go to him, but he couldn't escape. They wanted him to say they got him married, to this wonderful, chaste, beautiful girl, and they had guards making sure he wouldn't run off to Lord Chaitanya in Puri, But he had met Lord Nityananda, and Lord Nityananda said, "You will be able to do it. Just be patient, So eventually he escapes, and he goes to Puri, and he starts taking up the most austere practices just to eat. He's now under the care of Swarup Damodar. He never actually spoke directly to Lord Chaitanya. It was pretty amazing. He would always speak, he was so respectful, he would deal through Swarup Damodar. He was his secretary. So he started out, you have to eat, right? So he was going, and I think standing on the stairs to the big temple. The main thing is the Jagannath temple is there, And the Brahmins would come out, and he would beg something, and some would give something to him, and this way he would eat. But then after a while, Lord Chaitanya heard about that. He saw him. They said, "Oh, this is very good, very renounced, But then after a while, they didn't see him anymore there. And so he asked Swarup Damodar, "Well, where is he? Where's our Raghunath?" And he said, "Well, he thought this is not good. I'm standing here, and I gradually know which Brahmin will give me, and so I'm like a prostitute. I don't go to this one, I go to that one." He said, "It's too entangling." So he says, "How is he eating?" So he finally found out. He found Raghunath, and what he was doing with Swarup Damodar was that because they cook huge quantities of prasadam in the Puri temple. This is 500 years ago. They're still doing it. Whoever comes there can eat. Thousands of people would come. So they have stuff left over. Sometimes it's too much rice. You can imagine how much rice they cook every day. So what to do with it? They throw it into the field for the cows, But after a while, some of it gets rotten. Even the cows won't eat it. So Raghunath Das would take that rice. Nobody wants it. He would wash it thoroughly, and he would eat that, and that was his sustenance. From being a millionaire, he took the extremes. And then finally, when he went to Puri after several years, Lord Chaitanya left. He departed, and Raghunath was devastated. He went to Vrindavan in order to commit suicide, jumping off Govardhan Hill. But when he got there, he met Rupa and Sanatan, and they appealed to him, no, don't do that. Because you witnessed Lord Chaitanya's Antya Leela firsthand, and he had notes, I think, that he made, or at least he had a memory of it. He said, you have to tell us about that. So every day, or in Radhakund, he would hold court for like 3 hours and tell about Lord Chaitanya's Antya Leela, which Krishna's Kaviraj was there. That was one of his sources. And another was, I think, the notes of Swarup Damodar. He would actually keep physical notes. And that's why we have such detail of that Antya Leela, which is absolutely amazing. So the point is that Raghunath Das completely became detached, even though physically he was still there. He didn't want any of of the whole thing with the wealth and the sense gratification and everything that was available. He was so attracted to Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda. And the same thing with Rupa and Sanatan. They were Zamindar. Not Zamindar. They were the right and left hand of the king, Nawab Hussain Shah, meaning that Sanatan was the prime minister and Rupa was the finance minister. And you can see they must have been trusted like anything, right? They were very competent. They were born in Saraswat, the Brahmin family is the highest, very learned and very honest, completely honest, But when Lord Chaitanya, he heard about them, he went there to Ramankeli, I think the name was the town. And Rupa and Sanatan saw him, and they were completely transformed, and they offered the dandabats, and they chanted this verse, famous verse, Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Goda Chujaya Namaha. We offer obeisance unto the most munificent avatar of all, Mahabhadanyaya. Why? Because he's freely giving out Krishna Prema. It's the most valuable thing in existence, is love for Krishna. So he's giving it out with the Sankirtan movement. Krishnaya, but it's Krishna himself. Krishnaya, Krishna Chaitanya Namne, with the name of Krishna Chaitanya. Namne. Krishnaya, Krishna Chaitanya Namne, Goda Tujaya Namaha. He's Krishna with a golden complexion. So this was a verse that spontaneously, I think, composed it. And Lord Chaitanya said, okay, now you two go to Vrindavan, get free of your government service, and you go to Vrindavan, and because at that time Vrindavan, was just a rough forest. The Muslims, when they came and they would use it just as a hunting ground, But it was where Krishna had performed his pastimes. But the Leela stands were like covered; no one knew where they were. So you go and you excavate those Leela stands, and you make it into the place of pilgrimage that it should be, and you write books on bhakti, and that's just what they did. So they were the ideal. They would meet the criteria of this verse. The completely purified Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, Jitendriya, self-controlled, and Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma, compassionate to everyone, dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to them. And they're completely unentangled in the material world. You see, they're the ideal. And this wonderful verse by who was it who wrote that? Srinivasacharya, I believe, the sixth Goswami song. The fourth one, or fifth one is my favorite. We're on page 235. If you want to get a book, we have so many books. Here. He's got. There you go. So, Tyaktva Turna Meshesha Mandala Patishening Sada Tuchavat. This describes the six Goswamis, especially those three. Raghunath Das, whose birthday is tomorrow, Parents' Day, and Rupa and Sanatan. So, Tyaktva Turnam, quickly, without contemplating, should I or shouldn't I? I don't know, maybe no. They immediately came to the conclusion and the determination to renounce all of their wealth and all of their influence and all of their, royal connections. So that's Turna Ashesha Mandalapati, means, they're surrounded by aristocracy and all the whole thing of, Ashesha Mandalapati, Sada Tuchavat. They saw it as completely insignificant at that point. They had come in contact with Lord Chaitanya. They had been infused with the inspiration to follow him, surrender to him. And they were already at a very high level, and they became even higher. So, Bhutva Dina Ganeshiko, for the sake of the Dinas. Dinas means the wretched of the earth, those who are devoid of Krishna consciousness, who are suffering, birth, old age, disease. For their sake, Kopina Kantashito, they took on the most simple garments of loincloths and rejected clothes, and they were living as simply as you could possibly live. They had no domicile. They would live under a tree in Vrindavan, but a different tree. It isn't like, this is my tree. No, different tree every night. They would beg from house to hole, get a few little chapati, something, simple. So, Dinagane Karunaya, out of mercy. Kopina Kantashito, taking shelter of the simple loincloth. But what did they do? What was their consciousness? Gopi Babara Samatabdal Harikalola Magno Mahor. Again and again they were diving and drinking the nectar ocean of the highest levels of bhakti, the gopis' love for Krishna. This is what they were. Each of them, you eventually learn who they really are as their actual identity. Different manjaris. Manjaris are the assistants to the sakis for Krishna's pastimes. They're younger girls, and so that was their internal form and identity. And they were living that even when they had the external body that they had. And of course, when the body dies, then they resume in Goloka itself, But the consciousness is there from the beginning. And so everyone saw, and of course they're all devotees in Vrindavan, and so they were very dear to them, and they lived wonderful lives there for, 80, 90 years old. So that's the ideal of this verse. The idea is to somehow live in this world without getting entangled. Nalipyate, kurvan api nalipyate. So the process of devotional service allows you to live in this world and not get entangled, because you're using everything. You're thinking of Krishna, you're understanding, you're chanting the holy name, and you're experiencing the pleasure of connection to Krishna through service. That pleasure obliterates the attraction of anything from the material world in terms of pleasure. What is your pleasure? Your pleasure is chanting Hare Krishna and giving Krishna to others. We saw it with Prabhupada. He was chanting Hare Krishna very blissfully and gathering people to chant with him. Went out to that Tompkins Square Park. I know it well. That used to be my stomping ground, believe it or not. In 1968, I was 1 or 2 years too late to catch it. But anyway, Krishna had plans, so I eventually joined in that area. But I remember, I can't really say I remember that particular tree, but there was a tree there under which Prabhupada was chanting for hours, with his first followers, a half dozen or a dozen of them. And it was a time when far out stuff like that was going on. It was a hippie era, and people would sit down and they would listen, and some of them would clap, they would play the recorders or whatever they had, And that's how he was preaching, with that little half a bongo drum, chanting for 3 hours, from 2 to 5. And then afterward he invited people to come back to the storefront, and a certain number did, those who were a little adventurous, And this is how the movement grew in the beginning. So what did he offer? He ordered the holy name, and of course his talk, he had the aura, of an actual guru, and he was a guru, and a genuine guru. And so people who were, sensitive, they were attracted to at least check it out. And so Prabhupada purposely embodied this also. Out of compassion, out of feeling to help the fallen people, to spread Krishna consciousness. That's why we're sitting here. If he hadn't come, we wouldn't be here. So we should always feel that debt of gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. And developing these books, I'm telling you, for these books to come out, especially in the early days, it was a big struggle. And now we have unlimited numbers of them. Okay, any questions on this verse? Performing duty without attachment, surrendering the results to the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful reaction. I think that's the next verse. Oh, I think 8 to 9. I went to 10. So 8 to 9. We're on now. Yeah, go ahead.
Mic.
Oh, the mic. Go get the mic. No, that's all right. We have one here.
You said that Antulila coming from Raghunath Goswami and Swarup Damodar Goswami notebooks. So
I'm sorry. What's
you said Antulila is coming from Raghunath Goswami's notebook and Swarup Damodar Goswami's notebook, right?
The Antya Lila, I'm not sure if Raghunath Das kept the physical notes, but he had it all in memory and he spoke and then they wrote it down. But definitely Swarup Damodar had notes that he was keeping.
What about the Adi Lila and Madhya Lila?
Yeah, the early Lila, Murari Gupta, I think. There were others who took notes, his Navadvip devotees. There were actually books written by them, about those earlier Leela. Vrindavan Das Thakur, I think he was also witnessed a lot of that. And so he wrote the Chaitanya Bhagavat. And there you find more information about Lord Nityananda, because he was a disciple of Lord Nityananda. So there's whole chapters on that, But the book got so large, I remember when my godbrother Pundarik Vijayanidhi, he translated the whole thing, and I remember I have it. This is about a 9-volume set. If you've seen him, and he so you get near the end, and it's Antya Lila, but Lord Chaitanya's in Puri, and he tells Nityananda go back, because Nityananda just wanted to stay with him. But he said, no, you go back to Bengal and preach. I can't go there. I told my mother I would set up here. He did go to South India, but he didn't go back. And so Nityananda then he started. He didn't want to go, but he accepted the order. So he has his own Gopals, his own associates. So they start going from Orissa to Bengal. It's quite a walk. All by, they're not taking any trains or anything. And so they're walking, and they're not even really wondering which way they're going. They're just chanting. And finally they get to a point, and they ask him, can you tell us how to go to Bengal? And say, well, you're way off the course. You go back down this way. So it took them months, to get there. And at one point, I remember reading this chapter. They're just chanting, kirtan, And they come to one village or town, and they get all the people, because by that time they're in or near Bengal, so they're Vaishnavas, so they take up the chanting. And they start chanting and chanting and chanting. And everyone gets infused with this energy, and it describes how people would just be uprooting trees, whole trees. Children were uprooting trees. It was too much. And so this is Nityananda's Leela, and Vrindavan was the disciple. So it goes on 200, 300, 400 verses in this one chapter. So shortly after that, because I don't want this book to get too long, we're going to end it soon. But he hadn't told much of the Antya Leela that we have in the CC. So that had to come later. So those two books together, because he has a lot more detail about the early Leela, the childhood Leela. The wonderful story of this Brahmin comes to visiting, he's wandering, he comes to Jagannath, Lord Chaitanya's father is Sachimata, and I can't remember all his name, Jagannath. I'm sorry? Not Jagannath Sutta. Huh?
Jagannath Mishra.
Mishra. Thank you. Jagannath Mishra. And so he comes there, and of course Jagannath Mishra is a wonderful devotee, so he invites him in, and he's a mendicant, and so in the evening he asks, can I cook something, cook my meal? And Lord Chaitanya is a little baby. He's like 4 or 5 years old, And says, oh, certainly. And so they clean the kitchen and they make all the stuff available, and he's cooking, and they're doing something else, they're letting him, So he makes this offering, and he's got it all on the altar, and he's making the offering, and little Nimai comes running in, and he takes a handful and he eats it. And the Brahmin says, oh my God, he spoiled the offering, So Jagannath Mishra comes in, and he's very upset because his guest, was disturbed. And he wants to punish Nimai. And Nimai is running, and Jagannath's running after him with a stick. And the Brahmin says, wait, he's just a child. He doesn't know, everything. I'll cook again. He says, okay. No, first please cook again. He says, all right, I'll cook once more. So it's getting a little late. It's 7 o'clock, but he says, all right, I'll cook. So they cleaned the kitchen again, and everything, made it, and they left, and he cleaned it. The same thing happens, And this time his father is really furious. They said, okay, they had told keep Nimai in another room so he doesn't bother, But he threw his Yogamaya potency and everyone, and he left him and he ran in. So it's getting late, and it's maybe 8, 9, 10 o'clock already, and Brahman says, that's okay, it's okay, I don't get everything much to eat every day, I'll just have a little, juice or whatever, So no. So Vishwarup comes in, and he's older, he's like maybe 12 years old and very stately. He's obviously a superior personality, very wonderful. And he pleads with the Brahmin, please cook one more time. It's almost midnight by now, Otherwise, we'll feel very, very bad. So he says, okay, one more time. But keep the boy separate. So they keep him behind closed doors. The mothers are all there with him, there's no question. But he throws the Yogamaya, and gradually they get tired and they take a nap and sleep and everything. So, so he cooked and everything, comes out, and there's Nimai comes again. And so the Brahmin is aghast, and he says, he kind of cries out, but they're all so sleepy, and they're fast asleep. They don't wake up. So then Nimai says, you keep calling me, and then I come and eat, and now you're upset. And then he reveals that he's actually the original Krishna, and the Brahmin is just ecstatic, cause and Nimai said, but don't tell anybody about this, or it'll be very bad for you, so keep it quiet. So the Brahmin stopped his wandering. He just stayed there in Navadvip because Krishna is there. So that whole story isn't there in the CC, but it's there in the Chaitanya Bhagavad. And other wonderful stories about the early days. So anyway, that's Lord Chaitanya's Leela. Okay, so what did we do? Did we do 9? We didn't do 9 yet. 8, 9. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavit Pashyan Shrindvan Spishan Jigran Ashnan Gachan Swapan Swasan Pralapan Visvajan Grinnan Unmishan Nimishan Napi Indriyan Indriyarteshu Vartanta iti Darayan. Okay. This translation has been revised a little bit. I'm trying to remember what it was. Okay. So we start here. Although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, breathing, speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening and closing the eyes, a person in the divine consciousness knows that he actually does nothing at all, because he knows only that the material senses are engaged in their objects and that he is aloof from them. Anyway, I'll read it the way it is, but it needs some explanation then. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because, while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. The point is that these two verses comprise one sentence, and we've adjusted it so the meaning is clear. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently he has nothing to do with any work which depends upon 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and the fortune. This is because he is engaged in the loving transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification, but in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in affairs of the senses. Activities such as seeing and hearing are actions of the senses meant for receiving knowledge, whereas moving, speaking, evacuating, etc. are actions of the senses meant for work. A Krishna conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord. So this idea of like knowing that you're doing nothing at all, you know, that's the whole point here, is that he's kind of, you're watching the mind, the intelligence, the active and the knowledge acquiring senses work. But they're just like paraphernalia for service on the altar or something. We have these bodies, they're machines, very complicated machines. And with the senses, which are how we interact with the outer world, we can either try to get sense gratification or satisfy our own desires, which is what conditioned life means, or in the proper consciousness, having received the knowledge and absorbed it and having faith, we use the senses for the service of Krishna. Well, how do we know how to do that? From the Shastra and from the Guru, or Gurus, you know, the sadhus. So for instance, the ears, we can hear all kinds of stuff. There's a million different things. And at the beginning of second canto, Shukadeva Goswami says, Shrota vyadini rajena ninaksanti sahasrata apushatam atma tattvam graheshu grahamedinam. Those who are simply materialists, you know, entangled in material family life or whatever, you know, they have millions of things to hear that just keep them conditioned. They keep them bound in this world. There's the Tower of Babel, you know, a million different, zillions of vibrations that don't help you transcend this world, don't get you closer to Krishna, but rather keep you tied here. So the ear is the key. And even if you're blind, like Bilvamangal Thakur, he was a great devotee because he could hear. You know, he could hear the chanting and so forth. So that hearing is essential. So someone, a pure devotee, they want to hear sounds that are in relation to Krishna consciousness. And we know, just you examine Prabhupada's life, you know, that we had, like 12 years we saw him from 65 through 67, say. And he was always either talking about Krishna or reading the book or writing the books, you know. He was always absorbed in the transcendental sound for the purpose of preaching, for giving it to others. Because that's how you communicate, you know, that's how you give it. So throughout his books you find this phrase, the transparent via media. Via media is one thing. It's really a transparent medium. That whole idea you have back, I don't know if it's this popular, this phrase of channeling, you know, that people would say, yes, I'm channeling this guru from 1,000 years ago, you know, there's a lot of bogus. But that idea of channeling being a transparent medium through which the teachings of the great acharyas can flow unimpeded and undistorted, that's the whole point of the Bhagavad Gita, as it is. Probably as it is. You can't change it for your own purposes. So Prabhupada, by that kind of transmission of knowledge, you please Krishna so much, and he gives you more and more enlightenment. And you can sense it. You meet a person like that, there's a certain peacefulness, a certain light, and joy that's there, and it's very attractive. You're attracted to be like that person, and that's the process of devotional service. That's why Mangalarti is so important. You reestablish a relationship with the Guru, Srila Prabhupada. All of us are disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Disciples in the most important sense of being followers, you know, to different degrees, but you know, followers of the instructions of his way of presenting Krishna, and certainly benefiting so much from the gifts that he gave. So that's what's describing here, a person in divine consciousness. And he's doing all kinds of things. Prabhupada was so active, you know, but in one sense he's not doing anything, because as a spirit soul he's just watching, just like the super soul is watching. So he's also feeling okay. And the wonderful advantage of that is that even if you try to do something and it's not successful, you're trying to please Krishna itself is success. You see? And Prabhupada, in that fighting for that Juhu thing, is a perfect example. He could have easily thrown in the towel. He even says in a lecture, we have temples all over the world. Why do I have to insist on this temple? He says, no, you know, Krishna is here. We're not going to let them to evict him. And it was a tremendous fight, you know, and even after the temple was built and Prabhupada was gone, there were attacks trying to on the devotees before it became, you know, what it is today, which is a tremendous place of pilgrimage. The devotees were arrested, they were thrown in jail, and they followed the principle enunciated in the Nectar of Devotion, where devotional service can also be done in the mind. If you don't have the facility, it's just as good, Krishna accepts it. So they're sitting in the jail, a bunch of them together, and they're cooking, you know, the elaborate feast, offering to the deities, you know. Kirtan was there, that they could do. And then they honored the feast. You know, I don't even know if they ate anything, but it was all, but they were bliss in the jail for some weeks. They stayed there. So it's a tremendous struggle, and this is a stage that is very attractive. You know, you're in the world, but you're not of the world. You're seeing the divine in every step. You know, just like that verse I chanted from Brahma Samhita. The third line is always Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarasta. So Anda, that's the universe. Andantarasta, throughout the universe, there is unlimited Paramanu. Paramanu means supremely small. It's a word that means atoms. So with all the atoms spread throughout the universe, you can imagine how many quadrillion, zillions there are. In every atom, he's there as the super soul. Just imagine. He's all-pervading. So seeing that way, seeing the presence of the Lord in every movement of in this world, that's the vision of the Mahabhagavat. So how can there be any separation from Krishna? You're seeing his influence everywhere. You're seeing him giving you opportunities to serve him by giving Krishna consciousness and doing so many things. So it's a wonderful state to be in, and Krishna is describing that different aspects of that state in this chapter. And the greatest, the most important verse in the chapter, although the one coming up, the one I always quote, I did on yesterday, Yehi samsparshija bhoga, that sense gratification is not indulged in by intelligent people because they know it's a source of misery and it's temporary. And it just brings you back again. So that's here, but text 29, which we'll get in a couple of weeks, is the peace formula, Prabhupada's famous peace formula, where Bhoktaram Yagitapasam, the great sages who know that I am the object of all sacrifices, the Lord of the whole universe, and Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, the Lord of all the planets, and most important, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, the best well-wishing friend of every living entity, sitting in the hearts of all, you see, and always ready to give us good counsel about how to come to him, if we'd only listen. So we don't listen, so he comes externally as the Guru and the Shastra to give us a good example, a good chance. And if we still ignore it, then it's up to us. We still have to suffer. Okay, I think we have to adjourn. I'm sorry I didn't do a poem. I'll just leave you with this thought. Sense pleasure is a dream. Krishna supreme. The aim is prem, and the way is the name. So with that thought, let's adjourn, and we'll have the kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And we'll resume tomorrow with number 10. You're all invited.